We are live.
All right.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody?
What's up? So, what we have a new tradition here. The guest brings some spirits with them. What you bring?
So I brought some Woodford Reserve, being that the liquor store next to me doesn't have the largest selection, but also cool history behind it. It's really cool distillery. I went there when I was in Kentucky and did a little bit of a bourbon tour in Woodford. It's probably our favorite. It's have you ever been to Kentucky?
No.
So it's all the brewery or the distilleries are going to be right along fresh sources of water. So on your way there, you're just driving through these rolling hills, and there's all the horses and the stables, and then you show up, and it's just this looks like a really old, almost like barn type building, and you show up, and they're making great bourbon.
Really?
It was it was kind of a coming of an age road trip I went on. I had just turned 21. I was living in Florida at the time, and my dad called me up, and he was living in Indiana in Fort Wayne, and he had a car to give me. So I was flying up, and my old bar manager that I worked with, he was from Indiana. He was 20 years older than me. He just moved back from bartending in Vegas, and I talked him into going on this road trip with me. So, like, I was just turning 21. He was newly divorced, like, raising a daughter.
Perfect timing.
And it was just like this coming-of-age road trip. We did a 7-day road trip. Never paid for a hotel, met strangers along the way, stayed with random people the whole way, and it was so the Woodford always reminds me of that trip.
It's like doing the Appalachian Trail without having to walk.
Oh, exactly. And I didn't, and luckily too, because I was getting bombed the whole trip. He drove the entire time, and he was at the time the product manager for a place called World of Beer. And they used to have like 500 different beers on tap,
Ming over there.
and like another 500 in a bottle and another 100 on tap. So he was their product developer. So he was calling up all these breweries along the way, and we had a big cooler in the trunk. And the whole way we were just going in, getting these really cool tours, bringing back a lot of this really cool product to Florida, and
That's cool, man.
getting to sip some fun stuff.
It's like bootlegging. All right, well, cheers to a great podcast.
Cheers.
Cheers, Ming. Salud. That's good.
It was good stuff. Let me know when you're ready for a refill.
I got a home inspection to do after this. Let me just sit in there like, oh, man. All right, so you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to the show. Today we are going to do another professional spotlight, and we are going to talk mortgages, and I'd like to talk about what your income could buy you. And we have my dude, the famous 732 Call Joe Lombardi. He is a licensed mortgage loan officer with Tidewater Mortgage Services. You can go to his social sites at 732 Call Joe, and his website is www.732calljoe. I absolutely love your Instagram, all your handles. I love how you branded everything the same. It is like, to me, it just makes me happy when I could see like 732 Call Joe is everywhere. So.
Well, a lot of people don't catch on too. That's actually my phone number. So my phone number
that's
works
your phone
out to
number also?
732 Call Joe.
Son of a bitch.
I had a Florida phone number when I started doing mortgages, and I was doing residential real estate in New Jersey, so no one's calling a Florida number for a Jersey
Hell
mortgage.
no.
So I was
It's
like,
like a
all right,
telemarketer.
yeah, so I get the standard, Jersey number, but then there was an attorney down in Florida that had something similar, so I kind of looked at what he was doing. I thought it was great marketing, so I fought with the phone company for like 3 months to be able to get the actual phone number. So it had to start off as a wall in our house, like a wall phone, and then I had to get it ported over. But when they tried to port it and switch the number to a cell phone, it took them like 3 attempts and like 2 months to be able to finally figure it out. But once it went live, 732 Call Joe was born.
That is awesome. 732 Call Joe. Well, before we get into all that 732 Call Joe is, I want to learn a little bit more about you, who you are as a person, and what you were doing before mortgages and all this craziness in this market right now.
Well, so I'm a little bit of a mix of a Jersey guy and a Florida man. So I was born in New Jersey in Ocean Township, and my family moved me going into 3rd grade down to Central Florida. So I pretty much grew up a lot of my life in Central Florida, and that's really what kind of shaped me. And then when I was 25, I would always come up and visit New Jersey, and my family's around the shore area. And I fell into the bar scene in Florida. I was bartending and serving. I was working at some great restaurants and really, really enjoying it, learning a lot as far as food and wine and all the partying that goes along with it. And I moved up here probably back in like 2014.
What made you come back up?
I decided to come up for just one summer. I was living in a house in Florida with a couple buddies. My lease was up, and my family, I have some family that works at Porta in Asbury Park. Mm-hmm. So I decided to move up for the summer. I got a job serving at Porta. I called one of my realtor friends that I knew from up here and was asking him where I should live, where I should look to find a place for the summer. And he's like, "Oh, you're living with me and my friends in our share house in Manasquan." I had no idea what that meant. So I moved up here to try to grow up a little bit, and now I'm in a full-blown Jersey Shore share house in Manasquan. I had 16 roommates, and everyone, they were all coming from Staten Island and Hoboken, Jersey City for the weekends, and I was living there full time.
Lots of shenanigans.
Trying to have a job working at the shore in the middle of a shore house. It was
my goodness.
So that was fun. I did that for 2 summers, kept the house during the winters, and I was still working in the restaurants. And my family up here, 2 of my cousins are real estate attorneys in Monmouth County. My uncle's a real estate attorney in Monmouth County and a lot of the land use distribution boards. My other uncle has a title company in the area too in Monmouth County. So I went to one of my uncles, and at this point I was only bartending and serving. Didn't really have a lot of direction. I know I wanted to do something with my life. So I kind of took it out of my hands and put it in my uncle's and said, "What should I do? Should I get my real estate license?" And he's like, "I think you'll I think you'll like mortgages. I have a guy in my office. He's great. He set me up with, shout out John Macarelli at Tidewater Mortgage. He set me up with my boss, and I've never looked back. I had no idea even what the industry was. They gave me a book, told me to study. I crammed for 2 months. I went and took the test. I cried inside of the testing center. I had at one point I couldn't even move the mouse. I had to go into the bathroom, splash water on my face, and just slap myself back into it.
Were you hungover or
No, just nervous? I at this point didn't really know.
It's one of those PSI testing centers, right?
Yeah.
Those places could stress you the hell out just walking in there.
I was 29 at the time. I started graying a little early, so I'm still trying to work in restaurants, and I'm like, this isn't working anymore. I got engaged this year, so I started dating.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I started dating my fiance right before I took the mortgage test, and I'm like, she's working a typical 9 to 5. I'm still working nights, weekends, holidays, which I ended up finding out you do that in the mortgage industry too. But I was ready to make a move, and I was just so nervous that a lot was riding on this test. You could always take it again, but I really just, being that I wasn't coming from the industry, I didn't have a finance background, I really wanted to just prove to my boss and our higher ups in corporate and my family, hey, I could do this. And then it just, you pass the test, and then you find out, you really don't know anything. You still have a lot to learn. So it was definitely the learning curve. I'm 3 years in. At this point, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. But when I first started, it was kind of fake it till you make it. And luckily, I had a great support team behind me that people would call me up for, to buy a home, and I'd pass them off to my boss a lot. Be like, "Oh, well, actually, my boss is my FHA specialist. Here you go." And I would just listen in.
No, but that's the way you have to do it. I think, it's better that you do that than screw it up on your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of people that would screw it up on their own because they don't feel that they have the right support system. And dude, even when I started real estate, I was like, listen, I put a lot of pressure on my own brokers. Like, what I don't know about all this paperwork, someone else that knows way better, and I just need enough time to get over that curve. But I'm sure they always were in good hands no matter what.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, they were always taken care of, and I was just kind of sit back and watch them almost run my loan, and I'm just watching from the sidelines, even though this is technically I'm the loan officer.
Yeah.
I'm kind of playing loan officer assistant while I got my team really running everything through. But I lucked out. It's not everyone gets a mentor in their life. My boss, when I started, he gets a piece off my deals, but not enough for the amount of time he's putting into making sure I'm understanding what's going on, I'm learning right, I'm doing things correctly, and it all comes down to the customer, and they're leaving happy. So that's what matters. Yeah,
man, absolutely. That's what this whole business is, because so much of a transaction could be done with a click. So the only way you keep and build a customer base is by your service and what you bring to the table.
Absolutely. And there's some people that really need, they need the hand holding, they're first time home buyers, and they really want, the analytics behind everything, why things are working the way they are and how it's all going. And those people, I love teaching them that. I'm almost ready to, some of them I could probably hire as an assistant right after they close. They've learned so much throughout their transaction. But then some people, there are programs too where you have these online companies like Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage that if you're a savvy home buyer and you know what you're doing, you're really financially, you have that background, you could probably do it through one of those companies and have a pretty good experience. But if you're not 100% confident and haven't bought a house before, you really want someone that's going to be there to not only take you through every step, but tell you why you're taking that step and tell you what the, why you're doing what you're doing, and someone to, it's stressful. So I'm a therapist too at times too. You're dealing with people going through a lot of emotions, making the biggest financial purchase they've ever made up to this point.
Yep.
So I don't take that lightly. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that they call me and allow me to help them out on this process.
Yeah, man. No, I 100% agree with you. But even, listen, online could, on the surface, seem like you're saving money. But even in insurance, in mortgages, when you don't understand the small print, the language that you need to understand, I just switched insurers and I saved $1,700 a year and I got better coverage. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know my coverage sucked the way it did. You know what I mean? And that's because that insurance guy, Logan Dustin, big up, like he looked over everything and he's like, all right, this is what you need. And like, just guys like Aaron, Levine, like people that are in the trades, and especially now, what to explain to people, the answers to the questions, where if you're using Quicken or any of these other things, you're calling up an operator and they're just pulling up your case and they're reading what the last person might have told you. So I don't know. I think personalized service definitely, trumps any online anything.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're refinancing, one of those could possibly work because you're not really, if it doesn't close on its projected date, you're still in your house.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to a purchase, I'm freaking out if it's coming down to the closing date and everything isn't in from, the attorneys and title, and I'm making sure you're getting that closing date. I'll fight with corporate to make sure you're being taken care of. The good thing with my company is right from when I started, I'm low on the totem pole. I've only been doing this a couple of years. We have a very large company, but I've talked, the vice president will call me from time to time just to say hello. The president's called me when I've had a big month just to congratulate me on my first, $1 million month when that happened. And they, from top to bottom, my team's awesome, which I can't speak more highly about them. They're awesome. So on a purchase, you do need that hand holding. It definitely.
Absolutely. So maybe a little bit more selfish for me to ask a question because, thinking about moving or, listen, when you have kids, you always think about moving and what's better for your family. But what was it like to move to Florida in the third grade?
So the Yankees had just won the 1996 World Series, moved down there, big Yankees fan, and then we moved to Central Florida. We moved to this town called Lake Mary, and Lake Mary, 10 years prior to when we moved there, was all just orange groves and cows, and this whole community just got built up that it was very rare, even growing up down there, to really have any friends that were native-born Floridians. For the most part, it was a lot of transplants. So my best friends were from Hershey, PA, Boston, Virginia, New York, and we only had a couple friends that were like native-born Floridians, and they let you know it. They were, if any of us saw a snake run through the grass, we're all kind of like, oh, cool, a snake, while they're chasing after it and catching it and
throwing it at you.
Yeah, and then occasionally you would end up, as I grew up there, you would occasionally get some of these native-born Floridians get you into some pretty sketchy situations where, hey, let's go mudding in my old truck that's not reliable and go 6 miles into the backwoods and try to go through a big bog. Or running in that.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I had one buddy. He took us out. His family had this old crappy boat on their property, and he talked us into going out on it on Lake Jessup. Now, Lake Jessup is this lake in Central Florida. It has the highest concentration of alligators anywhere in the country. So basically, if there's an alligator problem somewhere else, they grab the alligator, they dump them in Lake Jessup. So a lot of times, if you're leaving the airport, a lot of people will cross over this bridge on like a glassy morning when there's no wind. You'll just see all the alligator heads just floating up on top of on the lake as you go over the bridge. So yeah, we went out on a boat on there at like 6 o'clock at night. We couldn't get it started ourselves, so we have this.
Sounds like a horrible idea.
There's this guy drinking Busch Lights sitting there, and he's like, "You want me to give a try at it?" He hops in, 2 pulls, he gets his boat started up. So we take off, we're cruising, we're having a couple beers, we kill the engine to relax. That engine never started again, so we got stuck on this lake for like 5 hours. Luckily, there were some locals out catfish fishing, and they saw us and ended up having to tow us in, but we couldn't find, it was like such a small little ramp that where we came in, we couldn't find it. So we were just like stuck in the marshes, and in the mud. It was miserable, mosquitoes everywhere, and this
Alligators
all the
everywhere.
alligators, you hear them croaking, and it's like, why? I should be back in Jersey. What am I doing here? This is not where I'm supposed to be.
So, do you ever think about going back to Florida?
So
like,
actually,
what's home to you really now? Like, what do you feel is home to you?
I'm split. My mom's in Florida, my sister's in Florida, but my dad's up here. All my cousins are up here. So my life, my career's up in New Jersey. But when I got my mortgage license, I just got it for New Jersey to start, and then 2 years in, about a year ago, I got my Florida license as well, and Florida's taken off too. So now I'm spending a little bit more time down there, bouncing back. A lot of my friends and family that are still down there, and I grew up with. At first, they all know bartender Joe, server Joe, who's having a good time, all the time. So none of them were really trusting me with their transactions at first. So I kind of had to, go network on my own, find some strangers that were willing to use me, and then kind of show them and prove to them, hey, Joe knows what he's doing here. And now a lot of them are starting to trust me on their purchases and refinances. So Florida's growing right now. My active pipeline, I would say 40% of it's in Florida. So I'm kind of split between the two right now. They're both home. They really are. I'm 32 this weekend. On Sunday, I'll be 32.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I think I am split right down the middle, 16 years living in either state. So I got a lot of love for both of them.
Yeah. I always wonder, like my sister moved to North Carolina, but Jersey's home. Even her kids who never lived here, they feel like Jersey is their home. And I think it's something that Jersey just does to you. Maybe it's all the taxes we pay. I don't know. But like, there's definitely a cheaper way of life. And probably, I don't know, like I see like Florida being kind of like the Jersey Shore just all year almost, right? I mean, is it the way that, in my head, like parts of Florida are, Belmar all year long. I mean, it's 80 degrees right now in Orlando.
Yeah, and it's not far from that. The thing is, there's a lot more opportunity in New Jersey. I see that a lot of the people that I know in New Jersey that seem to be successful in my eyes, they might be a couple rings down the totem pole as far as in their company, and you could work for somebody, make great money, and have a great life in New Jersey. In Florida, it seemed that the people that were really crushing it typically own their businesses. You don't make as much in Florida across the board as far as salaries and income. Mm-hmm. So New Jersey's definitely, if you can have money in New Jersey's the best place to live, hands down in my opinion. You have everything. I love Eastern Monmouth County. I live in Belmar. Then I was in Manasquan. I love it there. If Jersey's tough, you always have that cheat code of, hey, I'm going to Florida and I can live the easy life down there. It's, I sent you a property the other day, and just, up here I see what a first-time home buyer gets, and then when I look at Florida, I sent you a house. It was $325,000, St. Augustine, Florida. Yeah, a couple blocks from the beach with a resort-style pool in the backyard, and it's almost like a cheat code down there.
It really is. I mean, it's so tempting if you're from here, and like in this stage of my life, we have kids. My son's in 3rd grade, that's why. But even like to think about like what it would be like to move when you could take your equity from what you make up here and go down there and almost purchase a house outright. Mm-hmm. And the taxes are, I don't even know, like a sixth of what it is.
Yeah,
up
they're
here.
probably like 20-30% of what they are.
Yeah, I mean,
here.
It's crazy to think of what, like, as you get older, you start going like, all right, so how much money should I give Jersey? Yeah. And then everyone that retires, they head south because of no income tax. And you go like, all right, well, when I retire, do I want to pay state income tax to Jersey and the heavy property tax? I mean, what did they just come out? Like the property tax in Jersey, the average is $9,600 or something crazy.
Yeah, it's
like
almost $10,000. And then I saw some, it just came out the other day. I saw it on NJ.com, and there's a lot of towns where their average property taxes are over $20,000 a year.
Can you?
Meanwhile, my mom's in Central Florida. She's in Lake Mary, Florida. A+ schools, great community. Her house is probably a little over 2,000 square feet, and she's paying like $1,300 a year in property taxes.
Crazy, just craziness. You
can almost find your property taxes in your couch.
You're not kidding. Now, and this brings me to first-time home buyers. Especially in Jersey, I mean, it is so difficult right now for a first-time home buyer, I think, to be in the game, right? I mean, especially those that are doing the 3.5% FHA. I mean, I hear from all the agents that I work with, and just seeing what's like. I mean, the offers out there are like heavy down payment, no appraisal contingency, no home inspection. Like, friggin' the people can live there another 6 months after they buy. Like, everyone's just doing whatever they could do. And then there's also deals that are falling apart because some people are going in a little too strong, then they get scared and they...
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so how is it right now for the 3.5% FHA home buyer?
Now, it's not impossible. I have a couple that are, right now in contract, and they are undergoing FHA minimum down payments. Just had one close recently in New Jersey where they need a seller's concession. But they are fewer and far between than what they were. But you have a lot of heavy cash buyers coming from New York, a lot of people that are just, like you said, they have a lot of money. They're waiving, inspections. They're saying, hey, live in your house and just, as long as it takes you to get out, I want your house though when you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So with the FHA buyers, there's going to be some heartbreak, but at the end of the day, you got to keep your eye on the prize. At the end of the day, eventually, you're going to win a bid. You're going to find a new home. You're going to have you're going to become a homeowner. But it's on my end, that's where the therapy thing kind of comes in, and trying to get them to not jump off that ride of trying to find a house, because sometimes you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bids that you don't win. You get disgruntled and you're ready to just kind of give up. But eventually, one's going to fall. What I've been trying to do for a lot of my borrowers right now, especially with how competitive this market is, as soon as we go, we put in an offer, I'll call up that listing agent and just say, hey, my name's Joe Lombardi. I'm with Tidewater Mortgage. Just want to let you know I did a full doc pre-approval on this borrower. I've checked their assets. I've checked their income. I've checked, everything. They're good to go. Sometimes that helps because a lot of times people get scared where, oh, this person's only putting down 3.5%. They're probably broke, and if anything happens, they're shot. Where that's not always the case. Sometimes it's credit scores have us going FHA. Sometimes they just you got to stick with it. And then you also, sometimes it's tough. Sometimes you got to move in with a family member, move in with your parents because you were planning on your lease ends in March and you were planning on getting under contract by mid-January and being ready to move from your rental directly into your new home. Well, maybe it's a blessing in disguise. And now you're moving home if you have the opportunity to save a little bit more money, or you also need to see if possibly your landlord's willing to go on like a month-to-month rental agreement with you. So that's where it gets tough because I have people that'll call me 4 or 5 months out from when their rental's up, and then they're calling me and like,
hey,
we
have a tight timeline.
Yeah, we haven't found anything yet. Do we renew? What do we do? Because we don't want to. If we renew, we're putting our whole search on, pushing it out almost a year. So it's tough.
Yeah. So right now, what type of mortgage product do you think is the strongest heading into like a bidding war right now?
Conventional beat FHA, VA pretty much every day of the week. I don't like that. I love working with first-time home buyers. I love, if I get a VA loan, I'm always excited. But conventional wins, unfortunately. So it's making it tough. So then if you are possibly having to go FHA, it's either A, due to credit scores, or B, due to the debt ratio. So there are ways to fix both of those. Credit scores are not stagnant. They fluctuate like the stock market all day, every day. You can manipulate your credit score within 30 days. If you just, I tell people all the time, make sure you're using your credit monitoring apps, whether it's Credit Karma or Credit Wise. But I always look at it as if you go into those apps, like say on Credit Karma, if you look at your utilization, it'll show you when that credit card last reported. So then now if you see that the balance is high, you can basically make sure you're getting your payment in before it's reported, and then we can manipulate it where, all right, we're going to have you pay off this card, completely right now. Your score is going to jump, and then as soon as your score jumps, go use that card. That's fine. Your credit score is locked in.
Yeah.
So we could always fix your credit scores or pay something off and try to get your debt ratio to be in line and work. And it's it's setting realistic expectations too for the borrower. It's making sure they understand the entire process, what they're getting themselves involved into, but also knowing what their ideal budget is and what they should be looking at and the prices where, it's tough when you have somebody where they ask me, what can I afford? Well, I'm not really sure when you do like a pre-approval because that's going to depend on taxes or their HOAs or what the insurance comes in at. But this is pretty much like the max payment you can fit into. Every single time you tell someone, hey, you could afford up to $300,000, the next 10 minutes they're sending you a house for $315, and they're like, how about this one? I'm like, it's pretty much a hard stop around that 300, but I'll run it for you. We'll see if there's a way to make it work. But, you don't want to be house broke. So you need to limit your, as a real estate professional, I should be trying to sell the most expensive houses I can. A lot of times I'll tell people like, hey, pump your brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
We're looking for long-term financial growth and long-term financial, health. If you're going right up to the top of your debt ratio and you don't have sometimes people go to the top of their debt ratio, but they're like, oh, I wash cars on the side and I make cash and that's not reported. All right, then you might be able to make that work. But if you're showing me all the income that you possibly have and you're right at the top of your debt ratio,
yeah, it's not good.
It scares me sometimes because you're locking in for 30 years and there's a lot of uncertainty in the going forward. And right now, with everything working as best as it can, you're barely affording this property.
Yeah, and I mean, I would always suggest to my clients, like, don't look at that max number. Look at like 80% of that max number.
Exactly.
Like, give yourself and I'm on all these real estate like Facebook boards or whatever pages, and there was some good advice that some of these people gave, which was like, if you look at homes that are 75, 80% of that max, maybe now you have a higher down payment and don't go FHA, go conventional, go less, get in a house, and then gain some appreciation and move up eventually. But like, if, like you said, like someone's like, oh, I'm approved for $300,000, and I would get that all the time. They're like, oh, I'm approved for $300,000. Let me look at everything up to $350,000, and then we'll try to get them down. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. I'm like, are you really? 300 means you better not fart wrong, and you might not get approved at the end. Like, who wants to be that stressed out, coming into the game? And but this market has created such a frenzy in so many areas that it's almost like if you don't have a heavy down payment, you just can't compete. Yeah,
and hopefully the spring market, it brings some more inventory, and there's going to be more homes out there for our buyers, and that's hopefully going to correct some of the pricing. And you hate to see inventory come in by somebody possibly losing their house, but since this whole pandemic has started, we haven't seen any foreclosures yet. There's definitely going to be some of those probably coming around at some point.
Yeah,
we don't want it's the last thing you want to see is somebody getting kicked out of their house, but
that's probably on the investment end, I see like foreclosures feeds investors and flippers. Like,
correct.
There's nothing out there, so you have a whole bunch of people that are protected because of COVID right now, and nothing's happening. So we don't even know. There could be a big old dump of homes coming at some point, which could really affect the market. I mean, you just don't know when and how that's going to happen, and how the government's going to manipulate, how the banks could foreclose and what reasons, and when that all gets drawn up. But all these homes that were kind of feeding the investors and helping flippers and getting, people in, even that were doing, I guess, like the 203Ks. I mean, I can't even imagine too many of those happening right now. Like,
no, that's going to be a tough sell right now, because if it's something that is probably falling in the line where it should be, 203K would benefit that property, there's an investor sitting there with cash ready to go, and he'll flip it himself.
Yeah, because investors are hungry right now.
Oh, yeah.
They have nothing. I mean, I look myself and I'm like, there's just nothing worth buying unless you're willing to go in there with a lot of cash, and kind of, it's risky. I don't know. To me.
Yeah, and it's where we're at, Monmouth County, Central Florida, or Central Jersey. We're kind of dealing with the same thing that Florida's dealing with too, because Florida has a mass exodus where a lot of people are moving there, and everyone's leaving New York, and some of them are going all the way to Florida, but a lot of them are just settling into Central Jersey, where if you're working every day in the city, this is too far normally for you to make that commute. But now, if your job has you working at home, or your job says, hey, we need you in the city one day a week for like a team meeting, all right, I could get there from the beaches in Jersey.
Yeah.
I could handle that hour and a half commute one day a week.
Yep.
So we have a lot of people that are all coming from up north. If they're stopping here to try to buy, or they're going all the way to Florida.
Yeah. Even, like you said, Central Jersey, Manahawkin. I was looking down there at Manahawkin, and it's insane down there. Another, they have no inventory also, like everywhere else. But the homes are going under contract quickly, like super quick. And like right now, it's like I don't even know how buyers, I mean, you see these lines at these open houses, and it's crazy, because at least when you go buy a car, you could take the car for a ride. It's like you're going in like cattle. I mean, you're looking around really fast, and then you're like, okay, am I going to put an offer on this house or not?
And some people are doing it sight unseen too, which is even crazier.
Yeah.
They're having their realtor walk through with like a Facebook Live for them real quick. And hey, let me show you this place. So what do you think? Should we go 30,000 over ask?
Yeah. A friend of mine had an open house. They listed, I want to say it was like $425. They had an offer for $455, but they were going to do an open house on a Wednesday, on a Tuesday, because they had so many showing requests. And it went from $450, which the seller was happy about. I think the offer came in yesterday at $530. And almost over $100,000 over ask. Like, what the? I don't even I would lose my mind if I was a buyer right now.
Now I am seeing though. So when this whole kind of over asking bidding war thing really got started at the start of the pandemic, a lot of the houses they weren't appraising. The comps weren't there to justify it. Now that we're seeing more and more houses that are selling over asking price, the comps are justifying some of these pricing now. That a lot of our appraisals, even when someone's going over, the appraisals are coming in, which is great, but it does show that the market is. It's crazy how much some of these bidding wars blow my mind, and you feel for these people because they're looking for somewhere to live, somewhere to build their family, put their kids in school, and there's so much uncertainty. We're like, oh, am I get my offer expected? There was 100 people at the open house. They said they got 25 offers. They're looking for best and final. Joe, how much can we go? What's our max? What can we do? Yeah. And it's like, it's tough. But.
And even best and final, I just had an agent. He was the highest offer, no contingency, and then they went with somebody else that was lower than his offer for whatever reason. So it's like, how do you even win right now? I don't even.
And that comes back to where I said I like to call the listing agents, just kind of reassure them that I did a full doc, pre-approval, checked all their assets, they're ready to go. Where if they maybe get a higher offer, but they're not as confident on that pre-approval letter, sometimes they might go for the one that they feel has a better chance of actually closing.
Yeah. Now, how about, since we're kind of talking about the pandemic and COVID, how it's affected everything, and it definitely affected how many homes are foreclosed on and everything. And a lot of people have done forbearance because that was it's a gimme from the friggin' mortgage company.
Yeah.
So how is forbearance, or how does it affect someone looking to purchase or looking to refi? If someone's looking to purchase or refi and they took the forbearance just to save the mortgage payment because they could, what does their process look like to get out of it, or what would you suggest to them, moving forward?
Well, so the forbearance was really, in my eyes, it was meant for people that possibly had hardship and lost their jobs during the pandemic, and they needed to have, some help in that aspect and not have those payments coming in. But I've also had some people that have great jobs. I have a buddy that I'm working with, and he has a great job. He's like, yeah, I took forbearance because why not? I'll save the money and put it in the market right now.
Yeah.
And
buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't really had to deal with too many people that have come to me when they're in forbearance. I've had a couple that have given me a call, and it is going to be tough. You need to basically be out of that forbearance, and I believe it is 6 payments you need to make before you are eligible to refinance again. Mm-hmm. Basically, they don't want to say like a 6-month history that forbearance after it's passed, or if you are in forbearance and you're like, I really want to take advantage of these low mortgage rates, I believe you would have to pay back the months that you used it on. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to be ready to go yet. It's not something I've ran into much, but it's definitely affecting some homeowners out there. It's just not a situation I've seen too many times on my own end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that did it, but most of the people are staying in their home anyway, and they're like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, if the bank's going to give me a free, it's over a year now for most people. Well,
now the bank's they're basically putting those payments on the back end, but you still got to stay on top of your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance. So that's what people are going to, you got to make sure you're still paying all your escrows.
Yeah.
Just so you're up to date and you don't have the tax man coming after you.
Yeah. And that's where, and a lot of these banks didn't have it, and sometimes they still don't have answers to the clients on how it all works, and I think, coming out of this, when all the protections come off, I don't know, the banks are in a tough position because they don't want to just dump all these people and have all these bad notes out there and have to foreclose. Like, that doesn't help their portfolio, but now how do you handle all these people that have, I don't know even how they're handling all the income that's not coming in, and they're paying out, whatever they're paying out to keep the mortgages good.
Yeah, and all their mortgages that they did have that they were collecting 5, 6, 4.5% on. Now all these people have refinanced, probably switched to a different bank, and you're only getting 2.5 to 3.5% off these the loans. The money's not coming in for the banks like it used to at all.
Yeah. Now, for someone looking to refinance, I know there's many people. Like, my brother-in-law is one that I think he refinanced. I don't even know how many times. Like, he would just watch the numbers go down. But what's a good rule of thumb for people looking at the numbers and saying, hey, is it worth refinancing? Is it like if you could save, and I know this is tough because some companies add fees and you could buy down rates and all this other stuff, and everything's not equal. There's not like a standardized form that you get an estimate from 4 different companies and it could look way different. But as a rule of thumb, if all things were equal, and I was to say, hey, listen, I'm at 3.85%, is it worth me refinancing?
So there's a couple ways to look at this. So I always ask somebody first and foremost, how long do you plan on being in your home? Because you are going to bring in some new bank fees, some new title fees, new government recording fees, and you're going to have new closing costs that are going to be built in. You're rolling right into the loan, but a lot of times it might take 2 years until you really recoup that money. So if you're saying, oh, we're planning on selling next year, then refinancing might not be the best option for you. Now, also, when you refinance, if you're going back out to a fresh 30-year mortgage, those first 2 years are very interest heavy, meaning you're paying a lot towards interest and a little bit towards principal. So yes, you are saving on your monthly payment, but you just slow down the building of equity a lot in your home. So I always like to see, hey, maybe we can, depending on how long you've been in your home, maybe if you've been in there for, say, 3 years, let's look at a 25-year. So now you're cutting 2 years off. We could probably still save you a little bit on your monthly payment, but now we're cutting years off of your mortgage. We could also look at, we have a 20-year, 15-year, 10-year. So we could look at all these different options, see which one makes the most sense, where you're comfortable with your monthly payment. But then, we could look at the amortization schedule and see if you're planning on being out of this house in 6 years. All right, well, in your current amortization schedule, you're going to have this much, you're going to owe the bank this much in 5 years when you go to sell. Now, if we bring you down to a 20-year where your payments say slightly going up, but you're building that equity a lot quicker, now in 5 years before you go to purchase that next home, you're going to have a lot more into your current home to go into that next one. So then now, if we end up being in a market like we currently are, you're going to be one of those heavy down payment buyers that are winning the bids.
Yeah. Do you have that conversation with buyers before they put their offer in anyway? Like asking them what their timeline is? Are you looking to purchase now?
Absolutely.
Maybe move up in 5 years? I mean, that's a good conversation to have. I always ask people, like, everything depends on, like, first-time home buyer, everyone wants that nice, crazy house at first. But I'm like, well, do you even know where you want to live? Maybe getting a condo or a townhome's good at first. Establish yourself, get 5 years in. At least you're not paying rent, and then you it's like homeowner light. You don't have all the expenses of being a homeowner.
And it's a tough conversation to have with people sometimes when they're first-time home buyers and they want the house with all the bells and whistles and check all their boxes. But try to remind people, this is the house before the house. This is the one where you're going to move into. You're going to build some equity. You're going to learn about being a homeowner, and you're going to see exactly where you want to be. But you're going to build that equity. So then that next home, you want to check more boxes or all the boxes. But that first one, unless you got somebody throwing you a good gift or you have an awesome job, you're probably not going to check all the boxes on your first home. But you're probably never going to get to that second home unless there's no way to get to a second home unless you have a first home.
Absolutely.
And that second home is, or the third, but the second home is typically, that's the one where you're really settling in, and that's home base for a long time.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct, because your first home is normally, you're starting out your career, you're starting out life maybe together as a husband and wife, whatever. Your life is just starting, and then by the time you're getting close to that second home, like, you're established, you know where you want to go, you know where you want to be, you know where you're working, you have all these other things that are kind of just already set in place. And like you said, now you know what boxes you need checked and the other stuff that didn't matter, and you move from there. But all that matters with what you were saying with refinancing and like refi now, if you're going to sell next year, is that even smart? Like, did you save any money? You didn't. You know what I mean? And like you said, like, you refi into a 30, now you're heavily just paying interest. So your principal didn't go down much, a few $100. You're hoping the market took off.
Yeah, you hope
really.
it appreciated on its own through the market. But,
yeah.
Which I always tell people too, a lot of times, so if you make an extra payment on your mortgage, they used to say the rule of thumb, now with the rates lower, it might be a little bit adjusted, but it used to be, if you make one extra mortgage payment a year, so 13 equal payments instead of 12, normally you cut about 6 years off your mortgage. Anything you pay over on your mortgage is going directly towards that principal. So the interest isn't incurred on your loan until that statement comes out. So anytime you throw anything extra at it, you're just attacking that principal. So sometimes refinancing, if you're already paying a good rate and you're like, oh, well, I want to save some money, just throw a little bit more at your principal, and you're going to have the same effect sometimes I'll talk myself out of deals sometimes, which I know I shouldn't, but yeah, and then sometimes too, like we were talking earlier about the insurance, where all the people call me up and they're like, "Hey, should I refinance? My payment's a little high," and they're paying, 3.25% from last year or so, and I'm like, "Your payment, your rate's not bad, but who did your insurance? You're paying way too high. Check your insurance. Maybe you could save $100 a month right there, and then hey, you're making that payment. Just throw that $100 you're saving on your insurance right into your mortgage.
Yeah, and save the time.
Yeah,
awesome, man. Well, now I want to switch gears a little bit because I know talking about, we all want to know what we could afford, So I was just wondering for, just whatever. These are definitely going to be general numbers for people because, credit scores, debt to income, all this other stuff. But I just want to know, like, people looking at certain home ranges, what are they looking at, like, income wise to get into these homes? I know you gave me like some kind of quick and dirty, equation, so I'll let you do those on your own. But, so we'll start it off light for like the first time home buyer, someone looking to get into something up to $200,000. What kind of income do you think they need to be around to get into something around $200,000?
So, well, it's going to depend on the home, what the taxes come into. So if I have a Florida listener, somebody on my Facebook from Florida listening, and someone in Jersey, it's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
But basically what happens is when you come to me and you want to get pre-approved to buy a home, what we're doing is building what's called a debt to income ratio. So we're going to look at how much money you bring in a month. And then basically for a conventional loan, we want to keep that under about 45%. With FHA, we want to keep your monthly housing or monthly expenses that you're liable for under about 55%. So basically what we're going to do is, using easy numbers, say someone makes $10,000 a month, which is high, but we're going to go 10,000 just because it's a nice, easy round number. So now we want to keep, for a conventional loan, all of your monthly expenses under 45% or $4,500. Now the things that are going to come up as a monthly expense, it's going to be your student loans. Now, the student loans, it's not going to be, right now, I know a lot of those are in forbearance as well. It's not going to be, or some people, when they're starting off their career, they get on a payment plan that's a little bit less than what they normally be paying. It does need to be, the payment that we calculate against you does need to be a fully amortizing payment, meaning if you make these payments, the loan will be eventually paid off. So typically, if you're in forbearance, we're using 1% of your student loans against your monthly ratio. Also, car payments, and then your credit cards. So for your credit cards, it doesn't matter what your balance is, it's what your minimum payment is. So that minimum payment is going to go against you as well. So again, with the $10,000 a month, we need to keep everything under $4,500. So now, say your student loans are $500 a month. Now you have $4,000 left over. Now if you have another $500 in credit card payments, now you're down to $3,500. And then we have your car payment, another $500. So now we have $3,000 left over. Your new monthly housing expense needs to be under that $3,000. So you kind of do like a really quick debt to income ratio. If you know what you make for salary, what you make a year, basically divide that by 12, times that by 0.45, and then all of your expenses from credit cards, student loans, car payments, and then your housing expense need to be under there. So now I see in our industry all the time people shit on Zillow left and right. I like Zillow. Zillow is a great tool, I think, for people to look and find homes. And there is a Zillow calculator in there as well, so that you can see a rough idea of where your monthly payment would fall on that property. Just make sure you give me a call, tell you what kind of rate to put in there, just so we have an idea on kind of putting it right where the market's kind of landing. But the best way to know what you can afford is by calling a mortgage professional. Yeah. They're going to be able to really break it down for you. But debt to income ratio is a big one, and then we're looking at credit scores, and then it depends on how you get paid. That's going to be a big issue with when you go to get pre-approved. If you're a W-2 salary employee, it's going to be pretty smooth transaction for you. But if you're self-employed and you're getting bonuses and you have annuities getting paid out, and it's going to get a little bit more paperwork on your end, but we can make it happen.
So let's just give some round numbers. So someone like a $200,000 home. What are you thinking?
I'm pulling out the calculator.
Yeah, pull out the calculator. Because you always wonder, you go online and there, like you said, there's a little bit more to it than just putting in your income and, here's what you could afford, because you have other debt and everything else that goes into it. Some people have crazy amount of debt, even though, their debt is almost exactly as much as their income. So,
my app's not working. Hold on.
Yeah. So I could see how, these numbers are definitely just kind of general, but I'm always intrigued by, when you see like someone like the Real Housewives buying these $3.5 million homes, and you wonder, like, well, how much are they what are they putting down? What are they mortgaging off? Like, how?
Yeah, I don't know.
What is $1 million? Like, if I wanted to buy $1 million home, like, what does my mortgage look like? Is it $5,000 a month?
Yeah. So the one I was talking about, I did an open house over the weekend, and we basically, the house was listed at $1,050,000. So the conventional loan limit in Monmouth County in New Jersey is $822,375. So this house was a really fun house because, actually, I have it right behind me. So on a conventional loan on there, so basically if you put 22% down on that property instead of 20%, it would put you at an $819,000 loan amount. So it puts you just under the conventional limit. On that, basically, you'd be looking on $1 million house. On this one, for instance, taxes are also about $18,000 a year, but it would be like $5,190 or $5,159 a month, so a little over $5,000 a month for $1 million house.
Wow.
So now, when we were speaking about it the other day, what would somebody have to be able to afford to live in there? Well, they would have to be at least showing about $12,000 a month to be under the debt ratio.
$12,000 before or after taxes?
Before taxes. Before taxes, but that's going to be assuming they have no other debts. They have no car payment, no credit cards, no student loans. So
just going to live in the house.
Yeah, just live in the house and stay in there, never do anything, not go out to eat, and just barely scrape by.
Wow, I mean, listen, this home is beautiful. I mean, 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, 4,965 square feet. I mean, it's a monster.
And there was 2,000 square feet of the finished basement that's not included in that.
I mean, it looks like what does it have? A movie theater downstairs? I mean, it really is gorgeous.
Movie theater, pool table, Viking range in the kitchen downstairs, full bar. Yeah, it was a beautiful home.
Yeah, it's sick. But it's like kind of like you look at even $5,000, and you're like, all right, $60,000. So maybe like a husband and wife, if they're making $180,000 a year, they could probably swing it without doing much else. I mean,
you're not getting a first-time home buyer in there. That's somebody that's pretty well established, or probably has kids, big family that needs that space.
I mean, the pictures are deceiving. Like the picture, it doesn't look as big to me as it probably is. But
the master bedroom just kept going and going off the master, which was already massive. Then
it looks like almost. I'm looking at it now. It almost looks like there's a mirror. That doorway goes into another.
Yeah,
doorway.
No, it goes into like a powder room. Then it goes into another room with two
What does
two
somebody
closets.
Need all this room for? I inspect these homes, and I'm like, it doesn't even. There's not enough furniture in these homes to fill these rooms. Really, like even here, you have a bed, you have a dresser, you have a I don't know, like it looks like a 20 by 20 throw rug. I mean, it's just ginormous. Like, what are you doing there? I mean, unless you're stepbrothers and you want to do some activities in your room. I mean, it is insane. Some of these homes are just, I don't know. Like, I don't understand the need for all the space, but I mean, it's cool to have. I mean, I wouldn't want to even. I couldn't imagine the heating bill here. Like,
there was 4 AC units. This thing.
My kids would be wearing sweatshirts every day. Like, listen, we're paying $5,000 a month. Like, we don't have enough money for friggin' NJ heat. But there you go. Like, so you want to buy $1 million home and you got 22% down payment. You're at almost $5,200 a month. With $18,000 taxes. Unbelievable. I don't know. It's definitely. I'm looking to go way the opposite way than that.
You want to live below your means. You want to be able to enjoy your life. You don't want to be house broke by any means. But you never know. Somebody buying that house might be able to afford a $2 million house, and that's them downsizing.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, there's a marketplace for everybody. Mm-hmm. Thank God. And good for whoever purchases this. Hopefully they're not stretching themselves out. But you find people that stretch themselves out on $1 million home or a $200,000 home, and it's not worth it to stretch to get, like you said, house poor. Like, and eventually, I mean, I think your income and everything will definitely get higher, and like the house isn't going to be as expensive as it feels today. 10 years from now. I mean, you look at like what your parents bought back then. Like, yeah, they bought a house for $80,000 and it's worth $500 now. But I find myself thinking like an old person, and I'm like, how's my kid going to afford a house now in New Jersey? Like, you know,
You're going to have to leave it to them.
yeah, exactly. That I'm like, if I don't purchase property and make investments so that they both could have a property, like, I don't know how a young person is able to afford. I mean, like the going rate in Monmouth County has got to be $500,000. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money. So I mean, that's half of this. So, so you're talking like $2,800 a month, $2,500 a month.
Now it does seem though, like once since I moved up here, it's a lot of the shore towns that we have in Monmouth County and even going into northern Ocean County. You're getting more and more year-round residents than we've ever had.
Yeah.
The Jersey Shore used to always be like a vacation destination. Now you have a lot more people laying down real roots where, just in Belmar, a lot more of our homes, instead of just being vacation homes, there are people that are living there with their family, putting their kids in the school system, working in the community. And it's also traveling south. Manasquan used to be another area where there was a lot of people's shore houses. A lot of people are making those their primary residences now. And then even, Point Pleasant, Point Borough, they're hot, Brick. And a lot of these places are going to continue to where if you go down Ocean County, you might be able to get a little bit more for your money and even go down to, like, say, Manahawkin, which you said, or say a Forked River, those areas.
Because of, remote everything now, remote work, remote, everything. You could move south, like you said. If you're making the trip to the city once a week, they could eat that other half hour.
You're going to enjoy your life a lot more
Definitely.
At the beach than you are in North Jersey.
I'm
a Jersey guy, but I stay in Central Jersey. I do not go over the Driscoll Bridge. If someone wants me to take them to Newark, I'm like, absolutely not.
I hear you.
I'm still Florida in that mindset. I do not like driving in North Jersey.
Oh, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for all that information. It's like tons to absorb. But before we wrap this up, I want to ask you a few quick questions to get to know a little bit more about you. What's your favorite book?
Ooh. That was a tough one right from the jump. I've always liked biographies and just learning about how other successful people made it to where they are. I read a lot of the Yankee books, like the Tory years. Read like Derek Jeter's autobiography, my Mariano Rivera's. I should read more. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
I'm all about audiobooks anyway, so like audiobooks work for me. You could drive, listen.
I used to really I remember growing up, I would read like the Chuck Palahniuk books, and I really liked Fight Club, and then I moved into some of his other stuff. And I actually, there is a book called The Land Remembered, and it is you read it in high school in Florida, but it's basically about like 4 generations of Floridians that start from cattle runners and then slowly move up into real estate development, and goes from like probably the mid 1800s to like up to maybe like the 70s, and finishes off with like Miami real estate tycoon that one of the family members eventually becomes. A Land Remembered, one of the best books I ever read.
Awesome. What's your favorite show?
Favorite show? I watch a lot of sports. Sports is usually my number one go-to. Other than that, let's see. Game of Thrones is over. That's a bummer. Sopranos was a great one. I would say favorite show of all time, The Wire.
Awesome. Favorite food?
Favorite food, anything Italian. I love pizza. Buffalo chicken pizza is one of my favorites, but any type of Italian food. Shout out to Spiritos and Elizabeth. I believe they are looking like they're on their last legs. Yeah. They've been around forever, and that was some of the best Italian food I've ever had.
Best raviolis.
Chicken parma raviolis all day.
Yep. Flat
Coke and
all right. Now that you mentioned pizza in Florida compared to Jersey.
Jersey pizza blows it out of the water. There are a couple places in Florida where you could get good pizza, but they are few and far between. Where in Jersey, you can kind of just stumble into any strip mall and get a good slice. Basically, when it comes to food, barbecue, sushi, I feel like are much better in Florida. But then up here, anything to do with bread, bagels, pizza, you can call the most random Chinese restaurant in New Jersey and get better Chinese than you'll find anywhere in Florida.
Good to know. All right, what's your favorite piece of advice someone's ever given you?
Favorite piece of advice? My grandfather, he told me when I was growing up, doesn't matter what you do, if you do it right, you'll be successful. He owned a large plumbing and heating company in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and he did really well for himself being a plumber. But he basically, he valued hard work. He pushed that out of his family and basically told me, whatever you do it to your best of your ability, you're going to be successful. So doesn't matter what you do it right, good things will happen.
Just kick ass at it, right? Just put 100% into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what too many people put 25% into.
Yeah, you got it. You don't want to be a jack of all trades. You want to be a master of something, and just I was juggling mortgages and, working in a restaurant and other things. But once you go full bore into it and really just make it your life, good things are going to come out of it.
Absolutely. All right, man. So let people know where they could find you.
Call me at 732-CALL-JOE. Find me at 732calljoe.com. Instagram 732-CALL-JOE. Facebook.com/732-CALL-JOE. Basically, just type 732-CALL-JOE into Google and you'll find me.
You can't mess that up. People.
Well, the greatest part when I started, I was like, we're in a referral-based business. I always like to think there could be two guys bobbing in a pool next to each other and be like, oh, looking to buy a house. Oh, you should call 732-CALL-JOE. Who? 732-CALL-JOE. And be able to give my information, receive it without ever passing. No one's having to say, let me go home. I'll look in the junk drawer. Let me find this guy's card. I'll send it to you. It's easy. And my phone's always attached to me that if you call me day or night, I'm answering.
Awesome, man. If you can't remember 732-CALL-JOE, you probably have other problems too. Well, Joe, thanks so much for coming on the show, bud. Thanks for bringing this Woodford Reserve. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's first podcast experience. This is cool. Bellworks is awesome. Ming, thank you for everything. Mike, thank you for this cool experience. I really appreciate it.
Well, listen, tons of success in 2021 and further, and congratulations on your engagement.
Thank you. We did it at Disney, another Florida thing. Yeah. I did it 3 times actually that day.
3 times?
Well, I did it like when we walked into Epcot.
Only do it once.
I walked into Epcot and I did it, and it was pretty private. My cousin and my best friend were with me, and they took some pictures. And then you're in Epcot, so you start getting bombed walking around the world celebrating. And then we'd see like the bigger groups, and I'm like, give me the ring back, and drop back down, and the whole place would erupt and cheer. And then, so anytime we would see a big crowd, I'm like, give me the ring, and I would do it again. Except there was one couple that saw the second one. And then when I did it the third time, I saw them, and they caught my eye, and they knew I was a sham, and it just ruined it all.
Phony!
Yeah, they were looking at me, and I think they just bought me a drink at the last bar because it was our engagement. They're like, is this what these people do?
Oh, my God, dude. That is great. Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, anyone, for listening, and 732-CALL-JOE.
Well, thank everyone for listening to the show. My name is Mikey T. Michael Anthony Timpani, as my mama named me. You can follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at First Timers Podcast Show. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Timpani Inspects, and my brother company at FTJ Builders, celebrating over 20 years in business this year. A link to all the websites can be found on my social sites. Please leave a review on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever else you'll find us. Share and subscribe to our weekly podcast. Message us with any questions and topics you would like to hear about. And if you're a professional who could bring some value to our audience, please contact me. Together we can learn and grow. I like to end with a quote, and today's quote is from Helen Keller. Keep your face to the sun, and you will never see the shadows. Thanks so much, everybody. God bless, and have an amazing week.